Good morning once again and welcome to the Kennebec Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Insider Breakfast. The Business Insider Breakfast Seminar has been a feature of this chamber for many years. The seminar is our monthly effort to keep chamber members informed on important public issues. Thanks to Central Maine Power Company and Kennebec Savings Bank for serving as major sponsors of this program. Today we're very pleased that Maine's Governor, Paul LePage, is joining us. It's a pleasure to see one of our largest gatherings to greet Governor LePage, who lays claim to the largest tax cut in Maine's history, with some 2/3 of Mainers getting income tax relief. Governor LePage has promoted a government culture that partners with the private sector and has removed regulatory red tape in a number of ways. In fact, on December 15, 2010, in this same room, Governor-elect LePage spoke here at our Business Insider and solicited many ideas from you on how to cut red tape. In his first 4 years, he has seen growth of 20,000 private sector jobs while assisting some 500 business startups and expansions. He takes pride in fostering charter schools and in paying off a $750 million debt. We're glad to have this return visit and look forward to the governor's plans for the 4 years ahead. We sincerely thank Paul LePage for his commitment to public service. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Paul R. LePage, Governor of the great state of Maine.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Peter. This past election, I would say, was probably one of the more negative campaigns in the history of our state, and so we've joined the rest of the country now in negative campaigns. I must say that it was so bad towards the end that I started hating myself. It really, and I truly hope that with the result of the election that the Maine people see that it doesn't work in Maine. It really doesn't work. And the people spoke out. And I'm very proud to have been elected this term with the way that it turned out, because it was so negative. We were outspent 2-1, and negative campaignings really don't work in Maine. This next 4 years is going to be a real challenge for Maine people, because we are going to be pushing a very, very bold agenda. And I'm not pushing it because I think I'm the greatest thing since peanut butter or any of that nature. What we are doing is I'm watching what's happening around the country. There are now 31 Republican governors. There's about 8 or 9 states, I'm not sure if it's 8 or 9 right now, that have no income tax. 19 states, 19 legislators are going to be, houses are going to be facing exactly what I've put forward this year. Massive income tax cuts. There's a reason for it. The strategy is this: the federal government is too big to work. It cannot reduce the tax, and we are the highest tax country in the world as we speak. The federal government is $18 trillion in debt and climbing daily. And so there's really little opportunity in the short term for the federal government to make America competitive again. We want to bring back manufacturing as Republican governors. We are working very, very hard to increase the standard of living that's taken a hit in the last 20 years. I will tell you, back in 1983 in Waterville, Maine, per capita income at that time was almost $35,000 in 1980. When I became governor in 2010, it was $29,000, because we lost all the manufacturing. We really need to change it. The other thing that's hurting this state is we have the oldest population in the country. To give you an idea of how severe it is, Being the oldest state, we're at median age of 44, plus a few months. The youngest state in America, Utah, at 29. We're at 44. So we have a lot of work to do. So what do we do? So what's the incentive? Or what's the goal? The goal is to keep our young people here, to make sure that they're well educated and that we keep them here. One of the strategies is going to be a scholarship plan to scholarship our young people to study STEM education here in Maine. And the other is a program where businesses who take on young people, give them jobs, who have student loans and pay off the student loans will have a dollar for dollar credit against their corporate tax. Being a pass-through state, they can get tax credits for it. So I think that that's one way that we're going to try to go around the country and attract young people. Retirees. Retirees are on fixed incomes. And I'll tell you, there's all this talk about increasing minimum wage. It's the worst thing you can do for our elderly population here in Maine. Whenever the minimum wage comes up, I get a flood of emails saying we're on fixed incomes. We don't get an increase when you increase everything. It's really devastating to us. Please don't do that. So one way of doing that is eliminating income tax. By eliminating income tax, everybody gets a pay increase immediately. That's a better strategy than fighting the minimum wage. Now Portland's they're getting a lot of fanfare and a lot of talk about they're going to raise minimum wage. It's unconstitutional. They should read the Constitution. It's just not doable. They can't go at it alone. The other big issue, military. Take a look at our military right now. There's going to be a massive downsizing in the military. The war in Iraq's gone. We're phasing out Afghanistan. The federal government is going to downsize the military. We want to attract those people here. A lot of them are 30s, early 40s, get a pension from the federal government. We want to bring them back to Maine for two reasons. One is they get a pension, and a lot of them are young enough to start new businesses. They're going to go join the workforce. They have experience. It's a win-win for the state of Maine if we could attract military retirees to Maine. So how do we do that? We take the income tax off military pensions. Pennsylvania's done that, and they have been the biggest benefactor of retirees from the military, a major benefactor. We need to do that. And most importantly, and I've said it 1,000 times, job creators go where they're welcome and stay where they're appreciated. Investment capital likes to be treated respectfully. And one of the ways that you do that is you provide a consistent standard of regulations, a consistent standard in the workplace. And so we need to be sure that we're respectful to investment capital and attract it here. So I'm putting together a budget. It's been bold, and we're the first one out of the chute only because we've known that the Republicans governors are all pretty much in sync about all the states becoming more competitive because we know the federal government can't do anything right now. They're maybe 2 generations, 3 generations away of being able to get its act together. So that means our children, our grandchildren, and even our unborn great-grandchildren are not going to have the same standards that we've been able to achieve. The American dream for them is going to be far different than the American dream has been for me. I'll tell you, I am the epitome of the American dream, and there's not a child I don't want to see succeed the way I've been able to get off the streets. And so but it's going to get much more difficult. Nowadays, I'm a firm believer of this. For a person to become a multimillionaire in the United States today, he has to break the rules. Because there's so much regulation at the federal level, state level, that you got to deflate the ball. So I was supposed to go down to the game on Sunday, and the roads were slippery, and my son came down from Waterville. He said there's 4 or 5 cars off the road, so we called the Augusta barracks. There were cars off the road. We called New Hampshire. They're saying it's a disaster down here, so we decided to watch it on TV. It's a good thing. So basically what we're trying to do is look at the whole workforce. Now, some people will say to me, you're picking winners and losers, da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm really not. What we're trying to do is establish a basis so that the future will be brighter. Right now, yes, we have some deductions, and those are going to go away. There's a whole lot of talk about charitable contributions. This is the one I think that if you look at it from the big picture is going to help. They're going to be the biggest benefactors. 25 years ago, Maine had about 2,500 millionaires in the state. And New Hampshire had about 800 to 900. Today, Maine is under 400 that are living here. And New Hampshire is over 4,000. Why? Because, as one person told me, if you take 3 or 4% a year, I don't like it, but I would stay in Maine. If you take 8%, and then you're going to come after my estate after I'm gone, I'm going to live in Ossipee, New Hampshire, or Portsmouth, New Hampshire, or Florida, or Nevada, Arizona, Texas, South Carolina, Alaska. I mean, I can go on and on. It's just I think there's only 7 or 8 states now that still have a death tax. If we're going to keep our successful people here, we can't penalize them when they pass. We got to allow them to pass on what they've earned, worked so hard for, pass on to their children and grandchildren. So we're getting rid of the death tax. We're lowering the income tax. We're going to increase the deduction for elderly. The military, because of the downsizing is coming in the next year, we want to immediately go after that and remove the income tax on those pensions. Then we're removing the overall rate down to 5.75. Now, this is the key. The reason it's 5.75 is because our economy right now is so fragile that if you go any further, you could hurt it. But the goal is, the goal is to eliminate the income tax. So if you eliminate the income tax, deductions don't matter because you don't need them. And my goal is, while this budget says 5.75, my goal is 4%. With a constitutional amendment that says that all growth in state government is going to go against eliminating the income tax. So I think that in 7 years we could be income tax free. I think in the next biennial, I think we're hoping to be at 4%. Now, why the income tax and not the other taxes? 1, income tax, you have no choice in it. You never even see it. It's gone before you cash the paycheck, or they deposit your check in the bank. The income tax is gone. But sales tax is a consumption tax. So you have a choice in the sales tax. You have to make a decision. You have a decision to make whether you buy it or not buy it. If you buy it, you're going to pay. Now, there is one dilemma, and I was speaking to Bruce Poliquin last night, is the internet sales. I met with some people yesterday afternoon, and that's one of the things we talked about. So last night I got home, I called Poliquin, and I said, Poliquin, get on to this. He said, oh, I knew you'd bring that up at some point. This is not a real popular one in Washington. But it's the law. It is the law in Maine that you pay the sales tax. All I'm trying to do is get the federal government to agree to make all Mainers honest. And that's why I want to get rid of the income tax. I make all Mainers honest. The booth renters that do your hair, they're not very good at adding up all the sales and putting it on the income tax sheet. We've been tracking a couple of them, and they're not reporting all of the income. I think they forget whose hair they've done over the course of a year. Some of our servers in restaurants have a habit of missing it. They're not very good at counting. I think they got to punch in a computer to tell them exactly how much the bill is. Fishermen. So there are many industries that if you deal with cash, the temptation is great. And so we want to just eliminate it. You earn it, you keep it. Now if you go buy something, you pay the sales tax. But the biggest reason why we're moving to the sales tax, the income tax is paid for by 1.3 million people in the state of Maine. The sales tax is paid for by 27 million people that come in and out of the state of Maine over a 12-month period. And if I have my way, it'll be 40 million. So that's the big reason why you move towards a consumption tax. The other one is real estate, property taxes. I do agree, and I'll be the first one to admit it, that if I was mayor right now, I'd be doing exactly what all the other mayors are doing, screaming at the governor. But they're missing one big point. They are there saying property taxes are going to go up. And I'll give you an example, and I'm going to be bringing out a report here. It's being worked on, and the reason I couldn't just slap it together and get it out is revenues are determined by zip codes, and revenue sharing is determined by towns. So you got to get the zip code and the town together and do a little bit of manipulating. But we did a couple of towns. Waterville. I was the mayor of Waterville. I was on the city council of Waterville, and I was on the committee, Kennebec County Budget Committee. So I do understand the flow of funds from the bottom to the top. Property taxes, the state has no control over local people's desire to spend. Now, when I was the mayor of Waterville, I took over in 2003. The tax rate was 29 mils. I left, it was 21 mils. 3 years later, it's back to 29 mils. There's a new fire station, new police station, new opera house, in a very difficult time, when the hospital is left and the economy has been absolutely damaged. So I question the logic. The taxes are up high and they say you're going to increase them. Yes, we are going to increase them. Revenue sharing, we're going to take revenue sharing. But this is the deal. Revenue sharing. City of Waterville, $1,049,000. Income tax paid by residents of Waterville, $18 million. So why I'm saying, okay, yeah, you're going to have a little bit of an increase in property taxes over the course of the next. So the city manager is correct in blasting the governor and saying, the city of Waterville, we earned it, that's our money. So he's concerned about the city. The governor has to be concerned about 1.3 million people. I'm concerned about the residents of Waterville. I'm going to put $18 million in their pockets, and I'm asking them to pay $1 million back. How many of you in this room would not take an 18-for-1 trade? It's that simple. This is simple math. It's not very complicated. And I can't make the decisions in Waterville. I used to be able to, and they got very fiscally responsible. Back when we had LD1, where we were going to have all these cuts and we're going to return monies to the towns, City of Waterville led the state with a 21% cut in property taxes and returned it. All the funding that the state put in education, the City of Waterville put that money and gave it back to the residents. Whereas a lot of people would say, and a lot of elected officials were saying, well, we're just not going to have to increase taxes. When I came into the governorship, and I've always said this, prior to being governor and prior to being the mayor of Waterville, I was a turnaround consultant. I'd go into troubled companies and we'd try to put them back together. In fact, we're doing some this week. I spoke yesterday morning at a company and trying to convince the unions that everybody's going to have to chip in to save the company. So coming to the state government is sort of natural. I've always said that on day one you can walk in and you can trim 10% off the top. I've yet to see a place you can't do that, including state government. It's just that when you're there, you lose the forest for the trees. You get so wrapped up in little things, you forget that there are things for efficiency. So in order for us, this state, to be relevant and competitive nationally, we have to become efficient, effective, and affordable. Right now, we are not affordable. We are not competitive in our corporate tax, nationally, or even in New England. We're not even competitive in New England. So all we're doing is taking it from 8.93, we're going to reduce it down to 6.75, and that, I believe, is a permanent step. I don't think we can get to a point in the next 10 years to eliminate the income tax on corporate. But being a pass-through state where the majority of our small businesses here in Maine are LLCs or S or partnerships, they're pass-through, the majority of companies will benefit. And the corporate, the largest C corporations, can do things like pay off student loans and get a dollar for dollar credit. So there are some incentives for them. So I truly believe that as a pass-through state where the majority of our small businesses go through a K-1, which all the income goes to the individual, that we can make a major, major difference. This tax cut is going to give $300 million back to Mainers immediately. That's in this budget. It's a $300 million budget. 3 more attempts and it's done. This will be our second. 3 more after that and you can get, if you plan it out, you can get rid of the income tax. It brings us from being 33rd in the nation to 23rd in the nation. Now we're getting closer to that top 10 where people will look at you. People think that we're competitive and they look at Maine to move. They look at the top 10 states to go to and they never get beyond 10. But if you make a lot of noise and you're in the press, and I know people don't like me to make a lot of noise, but you get noticed. Both Forbes and Wall Street have noticed this budget, and they're saying that it's very bold and it's assertive and it's moving in the right direction. So I think that this package will lower the taxes by 40%. So I think it's very, very important. And everybody gets an increase. For every dollar you don't have to pay in, you keep it. And I really still believe that's a better approach than the minimum wage. I really do. Because the minimum wage right now in the state of Maine, there's 6,000 people who get paid a minimum wage and they're all entry-level jobs. So there's this big fallacy out there that minimum wage helps people. It hurts small business. For every quarter that you increase minimum wage and there isn't a single individual that's hired at Martin that makes minimum wage, not an individual. Their rate is much higher. But the problem is this: the minute that you raise a minimum wage, if you're $1 away from the minimum wage, you expect to stay there. So you want a 25-cent increase immediately. 25-cent increase is $500,000 for that small company. In Maine standards, it might be big, but it's still a small company. Now, here's a company that has to make its living by beating Walmart in pricing. That's how they stay alive. They got to be competitive with Walmart. The best company, the best managed company in the world. In matter of fact, I believe we ought to hire the top 5 executives at Walmart and send them to Washington. Because they're that good. They operate that company with 4% labor. Martin's, which is a second user, you all know, surplus and salvage, is up into, it's 3 times that. And they have to compete. So that's what we're dealing with. That's the type of issues that you have to deal with in order to become competitive. So we are going to be moving towards a consumption tax. Now, property taxes. You also have a decision to make there. Elliott Cutler wanted to become governor because the salary of the governor would pay his property taxes. I had to go to a foreclosure. See, you had to make a decision. So you do have a decision to make when you're buying property. You have some say in it to the level that you want to go. Now, the reason why I don't like the aspect of adding to the property tax, I wish we could do without it, but you're going to have to put some money towards increasing the property tax if you go away from income tax. Right now we have the income tax, property tax, and the sales tax. We're eliminating one, you got to put the burden on the other 2. As I said earlier, 27 million people visit Maine a year. So we get a lot of money from outsiders. Maine is one of the richest states in America between May and September. Seriously. We have millionaires, billionaires, and some very, very powerful people here. From Justice Roberts to the lady that went to jail for inside. A couple of big CEOs. We have a lot of those folks. And all of their homes, they're paying big dollars in property taxes. And we thank them. We like that. Those are second homes. #1 state and second home owners in the country. So let's get that some tax there. So it's shifting it again. I'm looking to try to get as many people into the paying our standard of living as possible. So that's why we're going to the property tax. The corporations and the nonprofits over a certain threshold. Now, and people say, oh, you're terrible, you're going after hospitals, you're going after colleges. Biggest users of police department, I can't speak for all the communities where there's a college or university, but I can speak for Waterville because I was their mayor. The biggest demand from the police department came from Colby and Thomas. The biggest demand on our fire department and our rescue was the hospital. Every time there was a false alarm or a fire alarm, every single unit that we had in Waterville and Winslow and Fairfield and Oakland went right to the hospital. And the good reason why. Nursing homes and hospitals. There's some very vulnerable people in there and you have to pay attention. But that in itself is a reason why they should be paying something. They're also very high paying jobs. So I think that they need to share. And people will tell me, but they do charity care. Yes, they do charity care. And it's not out of the kindness of their heart, it's federal law to keep their tax-exempt status. It's that simple. So I used to have all kinds of compassion for hospitals. Then I became governor, I found out a lot of things about how they get there, and they're not lacking for nice buildings. Hint, hint. So basically, that's where we're going. Now, I want to go on to two other major issues that are really important. One is energy. State of Maine has been absolutely incompetent, and I'll say that. The legislature has been incompetent since I've been governor when it deals with energy. We have picked the winners and the losers. We pick solar, we pick wind, and we're hell-bent on restricting everything else. We have a 100 megawatt limitation on all forms of energy except for wind and so solar, and they're the highest cost in the market today. I'm not saying it's bad, but Mainers only earn 80% of the national average in salary and income. So why wouldn't we be trying to lower the cost of energy for those folks until we can get them up to 100 or 110% of the national average? Hydro, inexpensive. Natural gas. We've got $300 million of pipe in the ground. All I need now is gas to fill the pipe. New England's governors are all on board, with the exception of Deval Patrick. In the waning days of his administration, he jumped ship and he came off. Now we have Governor Baker in Massachusetts, who is working with us to bring the natural gas to Maine. The problem is we have the infrastructure, we don't have the capacity. We need more gas. I think it's important for Maine business. It's important to heat your homes. And despite all the work that's been done by the legislature, and not everyone, certain party, and some people in our party for that matter, there's individuals in the legislature that fought us. And we could have natural gas. We could be closer to it than we are now. We're 2 years away. We should be getting it this year, had we done the right thing 4 years ago. But natural gas is right there. People say, well, natural gas spikes in the winter. Of course it does, because there's a shortage. If you look at Louisiana right now, Louisiana has the lowest natural gas costs in the country because they have plenty of capacity. So we really need to do something. I think natural gas, hydro from Quebec is an opportunity. Hydro-Quebec is working with New Hampshire, and they keep thinking they're going to get it done. Governor Hassan, God love her. I love that lady. She hates transmission of hydro, and I love it. So I think we could get a little bit of money from Hydro-Quebec to transmit it to southern New England, and I think we could get some of their hydro, and we could transmit all that expensive stuff to the rich states. And I really think that we need to focus on lowering the cost of energy. And then the other issues are more like reforming welfare. We're going to continue doing that. I think that train left the station last year. It's going 60 miles an hour. And I think the Maine people are demanding it be fixed. And if the election didn't show you that, wait till 16. Because people want it fixed, and people on welfare want it fixed. There are so many people that come in and see me on Saturdays and tell me, thank you, thank you, thank you. Never knew how to do it, now I know how to do it. And they're getting jobs, and they're proud, they're self-reliant, they're really looking up. It's really amazing. It does work when people become responsible and they understand how you work with them to get them the skills. It's a great thing. And then the last one is going to be domestic violence. I'm going to continue on it. I'm working with Chief Justice Softly. We're going to be trying to get some PSAs out. We're trying to get in contact with Chief Roberts. We're going to be going national. We're trying to go national with it now. If the NFL can do it, we can do it. You know, they beat their wives and then they come and ask for forgiveness. And it really, I think, is effective. Not everybody in the NFL is certainly a deadbeat. And I think, but here in Maine, it's a particular problem. Last year, homicides in Maine were down. We've been averaging 24. Last year was 20. So that sounds good, except that 13 were domestics. 13 were domestics. 7 children under the age of 13 were murdered by a loved one last year. 7. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Those 7 children aren't going to have the chance to live the American dream. So that is something I'm going to continue to fight and try to stop in my lifetime. Hopefully we can get there, but with the concentration, the ability to put more money into the nursing homes and the disabled, and particularly mental illness, that we may be able to crack that heinous crime. But that is one, while the overall is dropping, for some reason domestic violence is still claiming way too many lives. So with that, I will open it up and we can ask questions. And if I can't answer them, too bad.